how to turn 20,000 into 200,000 from trading. Hi, it's Charlie giving you Saturday's video. Now, the reason this video's come about is because, as many of you know, I've been doing this trading challenge for some time now, for a few years. And that trading challenge started with 20k. And as of the last update that I did in December, I update every year, every December. It was sitting at, I think it was 128,000 at that point in December of last year. So if you want to go over that, then just come on the YouTube channel here. You can just go to the, I think it's in the, if you look under the tabs within the YouTube channel, just go to the live and you'll see it in there, and the challenges and stuff. You'll be able to find it if you go to the tabs. So 20, okay, so originally this challenge was just to turn 20 into, I think it was 70k, and then when I got it to 70k, I thought, well, we might as well carry on and just see, and then we'll see if we can get it to 100k. And because a lot of people are trying to get relatively small accounts, and I know that 20k to a lot of people isn't small by itself, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still relatively small. And it doesn't matter if you're sitting there saying, well, I've only got 2k. We can take the same principles that I'm going to be talking about here today, whether you've got a 2k account or whatever your size account is, and you want to try to put in, a five-fold increase like that, or whatever that is, five-fold increase there, or more. So I'm talking about a 10-fold increase, trying to get it to 200k now. So why 200k? Because if any of you watch the last update, I said, do you know what? I think it was last year. We might as well just see if I can get it to £1 million at some point in the coming years. So I don't know if that was last December or December before I said that. Because what I said was, okay, let's start talking about targets. So what I said was I think the previous year it got up to 96k. And I'm going to talk a lot about a lot of the things that I do and the approaches in order to increase the account. But when I looked at it, I said, well, so let's call that 100. So this is a good thing with having targets. If you had a target, you said, well, I just want to turn 96k into £1 million. That's really tough mentally to try and envisage. So what you need to do is break it down. So, and it's the same for me. I'd be like, well, I don't know how I'm going to turn 96,000 into £1 million. Crikey. So what you do is break it down. So you say, well, okay, well, and this is what I said. If I can make, on average, and it's obviously not going to happen every year, but if I can, on average, get around 50%, some years it might be less, some years it might be more, as we've seen in this challenge so far. But going forwards, if I could do that, how long would it take me to get that? Let's just round it up to 100. It'll make it easier for me to get to 100. Well, get to £1 million. So after a year, that would be 150,000. After 2 years, that's 75 on that. So that take us to 225, and so on and so forth. Add another 100 and something from that. That takes to 330. 330, another what's that, 160 on top of that, so that's 430, 490. Basically 250 on that takes us to 740 roughly. I'm just doing rough figures here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 years, because by the sixth year, if I did more 50% on that, would comfortably take it through the million threshold. So that's what I said. I think it was a year ago actually, and said, well, okay, so, and that's the good way of breaking it down, because otherwise you just think, oh God, trying to turn it to £1 million. Well, okay, do I have the ability potentially to be averaging 50% a year? Yeah, I could do that. It's never going to happen every year, and it didn't happen last year, fun enough. But yes, the potential is there to make 50% in a year, sometimes 100% in a year. I think the year before I did 100 and something percent. So the potential's certainly there. Okay. Now, if anyone's thinking, well, 50% a year, Charlie, that's not a lot. Actually, let's just bring up someone who's relatively famous in the trading world. This is Jim Simons. If you don't know who he is, he's the world's most successful fund manager ever, pretty much. And in this table here, I know it's a little bit blurry. I've taken it as a screenshot. It shows the performance of the medallion fund. Sorry, so from when it started in 1988 through to 2018 when it finished, and it averaged 66% per year. If you'd have invested in year one, I think it was $1,000. At the end of 2018, you would have had something like 40 million. That's the power of that type of compounding. So huge returns. And that's doing 66% a year on average. And within these results, you can see, look, there was a year he did 1%. Here was a year they did 16%. So of course there's going to be underperforming years. It looks like that was the only two years where it was that much, but 35% there, so slightly under the average on that year. 44% that year, 49%. And of course he gets those outlier years where he makes 136%, 152, 128. So you get my gist. So that is the world's most successful fund ever. And so if you're thinking, 50% a year, I can do that. Well, it's not that easy. So, but if you can get as an independent trader, it's sometimes easier. I say easier, but what makes his performance even more impressive is because he had billions under management. The bigger you get, the more difficult it is to get the same kind of results. To an individual, we can hop in and out of the market, and we don't have to worry about moving markets and all of that as a result of our volume. So anyway, so that's it. So 50% a year. Okay. So what about this 200,000? Coming back to that. Well, as you go along the way, it's nice to have little milestones. So having got to whatever it was, we'll put 125,000 last year. Of course, where's the next milestone? Well, it's 200,000. Okay. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I'm doing a video on having targets here, and I think it's good to, if you want to set yourself a challenge or a goal of what you want to achieve, it's good to have that goal, write it down in a trading plan. Maybe you have an overview document of what your goals for your personal goals are, as well as monetary goals from trading are going to be. But then you need to throw them in the bin. Write it all down, chuck it in the bottom of your drawer, because if your focus is on the money, then how are you focusing on the job in hand, the process of trading, the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month trading that you're doing? If you're constantly looking at this end goal, whatever the end goal is, you hear professional sports people talk about it all the time, focusing on the process of everything, not the win at the end of the match or the end of the race, whatever. So that's one of the big things I always say. So yes, of course, I'm doing this as a challenge. So with the challenge, you have to have a set goal or whatever. But personally, I have to make sure I'm not thinking about, this next level of, potentially, when am I going to get it to 200,000 sort of thing? Because if I'm doing that, then I'm not focused on the process correctly. So the point is to, by all means, set a goal, whatever your goal may be, but then break it down, break it down into small bite-sized chunks. Okay, if I want to get from 2,000 to 10,000, that's fine to have as a goal on a trading account, but break it down in how you go about doing it, because otherwise you're just thinking about the end monetary amount. Like I've already said, by all means write that down in a document and then throw it in the drawer, because you need to get on with the process of trading this. And a lot of the time, early doors, you're going to the gains that you make in monetary amounts are going to be quite small, but you need to focus on the trading that's done over here and focus on being the best trader you can be, executing your plan, whatever your plan is, and the money will take care of itself over time. So that's the other thing. There's no point for me when I started the 20k challenge. I'm not going to try and turn that into whatever 200k, so tenfold. I'm not going to try and do that in the space of a year. That's too much even for me. So I'm going to I'm not worried about how long it takes me to do it. It's a case of, well, like I've already said, once it started growing and we'd gone up, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I've done this initial challenge, turning it into the 70,000. Okay, let's just see if we can continue doing this. So I've got a rough ballpark figure of 50% per year, knowing with the power of the compounding, if I can come in either side of that every year. Not every year will I achieve 50% on the account. There are years that are outside of your control. You cannot, the market is not an ATM machine which is just going to dish you out X% per month every month. So some years are going to be trickier than other years for whatever reason, what the markets are doing, etc., etc. So but if I can be either side of that, I know that over the next 6 years, then the potential is certainly there to get to that million figure. But in the meantime, I'm looking at, well, okay, 200 being the next milestone. So we'll have to just see how that goes. But break it down. Doesn't have to be 50% per year. You may say, do you know what, 20% per year, that's what I'm going to be looking for. And again, if you averaged 20% per year and you did that for the next 10 or 20 years, that would be a whopping performance there. But it all has to come with within your trade plan, and don't think about that end goal. Now, one thing, as far as if anyone's just trying to build their account, this is good exercise. Just thinking about breaking down into much smaller chunks. But also bear in mind, if you've got a relatively small account, do you have the capacity not only to trade it profitably, but then to add to it as well? Because you can just get an online calculator showing you the power of adding into your account, as well as growth that you might be achieving from the trading, and it really compounds what you've got. So if you want to accelerate your growth curve, so to speak, outside, how can you do that? Well, you might be comfortable with your trading, and that's great, but you can accelerate it into a different trajectory by adding to your account as well, even if it's only a small amount, once a month, whatever, adding to your account. So there's some food for thought there today. That's what I'm doing. How to turn 20 into 200? Well, breaking it down. You've got your method. I've got my methods of trading, but then I just have to break it down and say, okay, this is what I need to be achieving roughly over the long term per year. Knowing full well that, and especially as a swing trader, my returns are going to be, I'm not trying to make money every week, every day, or even every month as a swing trader, because I hold positions for a lot longer. But the end result still ends up being, roughly the same. The big thing for me is, trying to identify when they come along, those big runners, and trying to stay with those runners when they do come along. That is what got the account from 20k upwards in the first place. When it got to, like I said, to 96, and then when it got to, was it 128 last year? I can't remember what the number was now. That's what got it there. So I know within my plan, it's right, just keep searching for those big multiple R winners or trade opportunities, trying to run, get into a trend early and then trying to run it and add to the gains as they go along. That's my overall philosophy, and I just continue to do that, and that is what ultimately gets the accounts to where they are. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about it. When I started the challenge at 20k, I didn't know how I was going to go about getting it to 70k. I didn't, all I can do is focus on the trading. I don't know what trades are going to get it there or what anything else. And so that is the overriding thing. It's focus on your process. And the more you spend focused on that, and that is the process is your strategy, your approach, your methodology, and yourself, everything about the whole process of trading. And although this whole video has been about targets and goals, you need to then chuck that, as I proverbially say, in the bin, at least not, and focus on that. Focus on this. Focus on your mindset. Focus on your methodology to the market. And the more you give to this, the results and returns tend to take care of themselves. Sorry for a slightly larger video here this weekend, but have a lovely weekend. For many of us, it's a bank holiday weekend. Enjoy, and I'll see you next week.